All right, and I have 7:30. We're going to go ahead and get started. I don't want to penalize anybody for being on time, so thank you all for that. I just wanted to check real quick, did everyone have a chance to finish the 2 chapters for this past week? Chapters 3 and 4.
Yeah. For the most part, speed reading.
Speed reading?
Okay. Yeah, I got some of it done.
Well, we're going to have a quiz at the end, so we'll see how that goes. I'm just kidding. Any thoughts on the reading? Anybody have any feedback on what you went through this week?
I think some of the concepts are really interesting and good. I have noticed that some of the things I already do a little bit of, in regards to calendar and sort of a next task kind of list. But I think one thing that the book sort of pointed out to me that I'm a big offender on is kind of having one big list to throw everything on rather than allowing that to sort of be an inbox and then divvying things out, individual project plans or something like that. And so I think for me, I guess the good part is some of it I'm already doing, but I just think I need to refine a lot more of that to be more structured. So
yep, and I think I don't know if you guys, if everyone has had a chance, if you weren't able to come to the call last week, and I am recording this as well. We did talk about that concept, Dave, a little bit, that Melissa kind of made the same realization that there's a lot of things in this that really are very, very much common sense. They're what a lot of us naturally do anyway. But what GTD does is it gives you, like you just said, a more complete approach, a framework to put all these things together in, and then by dividing things into those buckets, if you will, it allows you space to focus on them and be present with whatever that item is, so you give it more of your attention. And also you can get rid of all those things you're carrying around in your brain that are consuming your energy, that are stressing you out, that you could be using those things in a more productive way. So you're making a very common realization that folks make when they start going through this process, and I'm glad you're starting to see it. And it also tells me something about you and your basic organizational skills to start with. So
yeah, the biggest thing I took away, I think from, I can't remember if it was the energy, I think it was middle of chapter 4, was the idea of distributed cognition.
Yeah.
And like I said, just getting things out of your head to where you can look at them objectively and organize them, rather than, I always find myself, and I did this a lot during the book, was saying, oh, I need to do that. And then while I was reading the book, I was like, well, if I'm reading this book, I have to actually write that down instead of be one of those things that I know I'll remember and then I, of course, don't.
Right. And one of the analogies I heard early on from another GTD practitioner was, imagine every one of those little things you're trying to hang on to is a weight. And let's say it weighs some weight. Some ideas are heavier. They're 10 pounds. Some are a pound. Some are just a few ounces. But as you're carrying all that load with you all the time, it weighs you down. It makes you tired. It stresses you out. It takes the energy you could be using on something else away and spends it on something that really is not doing you any good. Mm-hmm. So it is a practice you have to get into, and it's a habit you're going to have to form. But I think the reward for practicing those things is you'll start to feel some relief. And then also for me, at least, the benefit for me has been I'm able to get more done. I'm able to be more effective with what I do. And that's really a big thing, that we can all get things done. We've been doing it all our lives. We wouldn't be successful at all if we couldn't do that. But you also know that if you really put yourself into something, and let's say you come in on a Saturday and you know what, I'm going to dedicate my time this morning on working on this thing. You are 100% focused on it. There's no distraction, and you give it your best, and you do a really good job. If you could do everything that way in your life, what difference would it make in what you could accomplish? That's really the message here, is that you can be present like that mind like water analogy, and really make a big difference in what you're doing. Okay, so I wanted to remind everyone, first of all, are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so on the planner page, and I'll remind everyone how to get there, if you go to the Mayornet homepage and you go to the cube in the upper left-hand corner, and you go down here, you'll see a block called Planner. When you click on that, it'll take you to your planner page, and you should have either in your favorites, if you added it there, or in your more plans, GTD Book Club. And in here I've got information on our meetings that are upcoming and the current one. some resources for you, and I just wanted to show you. If I go to the bottom and I click on the show completed, here's the week 1 and 2, the week 2 chapters 1 and 2, what we covered there, and any resources that I put out there for you, and also the introduction that we did the very first time we got together. And then in this week, chapters 3 and 4, I just put some bullets in here about what I want to talk about, really a recap of the chapter, and then there are some other resources here. And I wanted to point out, chapter 4 was a lot about setting up your workstation. And a lot of what David Allen has talked about so far in the first 3 chapters has been kind of conceptual. It's more about what's the idea behind this, not the how to do it. And chapter 4 is really where we began getting into the nuts and bolts of how do you actually start to do this. Some of it's pretty apparent, but I think, again, chapter 4 really starts to take us down that road. And 3 of the items that I put in this week's bucket are videos, and they're overviews or examples of a workspace. And I have mine that I'll show you guys. I've got some pictures I'll bring up here. Okay, so if you're seeing my screen, I've just got a basic in tray that has 3 parts. There's a inbox where anything that's going in I put in there, and at the very least at the end of the day my car keys are sitting there, so when I'm ready to go home it's ready to go. I have below that notes on my current projects, things that I'm working on, and I keep I try to be very low use of paper, so I have some paper but I'm not paperless. So anything that I'm currently working on, I've got notes there. And then at the bottom there's some reference material that I use, like I've got the accounting calendars, a couple of little things that I go to. Behind that I've got some working folders like my expense items, and then I have a physical folder for someday maybe, because there are some things that come in, like I'll get a catalog and I want to look at it but it's not something I want to deal with today, and I'll put it in there. And then I go through that every week in my weekly review, which I just did this morning. Also next to that I have all the materials that I need to work. A stapler, pen, highlighter, and any other little housekeeping items that I need. I also have around my office reference material, things to write on, and the other things that I use day to day. Another item that I keep, I've got this printer. It's a label printer. And David talks about this in the book, and I can't stress enough the kind of psychological impact you get by taking a file and printing a label and sticking it on there. It actually formalizes what you're doing. So to your point, Justin, you had an idea, say there's a project or something you want to work on, taking that first step of creating a folder for it. So now you need to put things in there. That automatically implies you're going to start taking next action steps to start moving forward. And the only things I keep out are the things I'm currently working on, and I have a place that I store anything that I've closed out in the last 60 days, and every 60 days I purge those files. That if I need to keep them for future reference, I'll do that. I'll usually scan them and put them on, keep them electronically, or I'll decide to throw them away because I'm done. So that's my basic workstation, and as I mentioned, there are 3 other examples out here, and they all have similar elements, but again, like many things in GTD, you have the flexibility to build what's going to work for you. As you're setting up your workstation, if you have questions, if you'd like my help, just let me know. Let's schedule something, and I'd be happy to kind of take an outsider's look at what you're going to work through and see if there's any pitfalls, because I'll be honest, I didn't always have a perfect system, and I don't know that I do today, and it's something that I've grown with over time, and because I did it all on my own, other than with the guidance of the book, I did make mistakes. So again, that's another benefit of doing this together, is that maybe we can help each other. So I'd encourage you to talk to each other about what you're doing as well. And I'd love to later hear some examples and maybe see some pictures. If you want to send them to me, I'll share them in a future meeting with everybody on what we're doing.
Do you have a suggestion on how to work on a box like I'm working on?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that, the workstation that I just showed is my at work or my office workstation. I have one at home that it's a simpler system. I have an inbox that sits on my kitchen counter, and I have a workstation where I can set my computer. It's like, it's not a docking station, but it's the same kind of arrangement where I can sit down. I have writing materials there. I have reference materials there that if I want to work on something. So I have another version. It's a little different, but I have another version at home. And then I'm not traveling as much anymore, but when I was traveling in the Mid-Atlantic, I had to have a mobile workstation. So it was all in my backpack, and I have a red folder in my backpack that says inbox, and anything that I would collect during my travel, I would stick it in there. So if I had receipts or whatever else came up, I'd put it in there. I have all the writing materials I need, anything else that I want to deal with on the road. And there are also portable label printers if you want to do that, if you're very travel intensive and you're never in the office. But I would encourage you, wherever you do work, to think about what are you going to need to be effective. And David, I know you're dealing with a temporary workspace right now, but I think you could easily, that box has an open area on one of the four sides, right? I think it's probably facing down.
Yeah.
But you could make that a compartment and put your inbox in there, or I don't know if you want to think of it the way I do when I travel. Have it in your travel bag, that you have an inbox folder or something like that. Chapter 3, just to recap, was about the 5 phases of project planning, and they are: define the purpose and principles, outcome visioning, brainstorming, organizing, and identifying next actions. And what I'd like to do is kind of go through an example. And let's say that our project is to plant a tree. So when you think about defining the purpose and principles of planting a tree, what would you say they are? And this is kind of that why question. Why would you want to plant a tree?
To create an ecological impact.
Yeah. But let's say, so that's the why you're doing it. So when you think about a project, why you're doing that project is pretty important. You want to define that. And I've been on many teams where we've talked about, we're going to go down this road, we're going to do this, but no one really in the beginning asks that why question. So defining the purpose, and then the principles on planting a tree may not be relevant, but think about what you're trying to accomplish, why you're doing it, and what aligns with your principles, and what are the benefits to the company, things like that is what you would think about. The outcome visioning for planting a tree is that's going to look good. It's going to look great in my front yard, and I'm going to feel the satisfaction of having done something with my hands, and now it's finished. The brainstorming would be thinking about what kind of tree do you want to plant, where do you want to put it, where are you going to buy it, do you need to go learn something first, do you need to get a book or watch some videos. So what are all the things that need to be done potentially, and the ideas you have about that project. Then it's the organizing, where you take all those ideas and you start to put them together into a structure of when you're going to do this, when you're going to do that. You're going to go to an arboretum and look at some examples, and then you're going to go talk to somebody, and you're going to watch a video, and then you're going to go to a home center and buy a tree. You're going to dig a hole, plant it, and then take care of it. So the organizing of those activities, and then the identifying the next actions is, once you have that plan, you know what you're going to do is start actually planning the activities of when you're going to do them, the resources you're going to need to get them done, and you do it. And if you think about that analogy, the 5 stages of planning, Dave, if you were kicking off a meeting with a team and you had a task in front of you, a project, and you went through those 5 points in your meeting, at the end, you'd walk away with, okay, now here's what we need to go do. So anything that we embark on, whether it's a project, something you're working on yourself, Savannah, if it's a project you're doing for school, you can follow it the same way. And as David described in the book, this is the natural planning model. This is what you go through naturally in your mind. You may not recognize the steps this way, but this is really what we all do automatically. So again, the structure is there to support it. And then, like I already mentioned, and we're not going to go through this in any more detail, but chapter 4 was about your workspace. And one of the things that he talks about is setting aside time to set it up. And there's going to be more on this coming in the next couple chapters, but I really do recommend that you carve out time to set things up so that it's not a disruption to your normal work. And it could be you schedule some time on your calendar and close the door and go to work, and then a lot of time I'll do those kinds of things at night or on the weekend so that I don't have any other commitments, and I've planned it that way, so it's not a big deal, but you have to do it what works for you. Well, thank you all for your time, and hope you enjoyed chapters 5 and 6 in the week ahead.
Great, thanks, guys.
All right, take care.
Thanks.